So, Joker Folie Deux. Where do I even begin? Thinking as already when this was confirmed, thinking it was a stupid idea, to hearing it was going to be a musical, thinking it was even more of a stupid idea, to seeing the first trailer and yeah, actually thinking maybe this isn't a stupid idea, to seeing the movie and yeah, it was a stupid idea. Now, I'm gonna come right off the bat and say this is way overhated. I feel like a lot of people are kind of hopping on a wagon right now and just being upset at the fact that, one, either there was no mindless action for 2 hours, or two, the ending. Which, some of these things I can get, but it's really not the worst comic book movie. And I don't know yet for sure if I'd even put it in that category. But with that being said, yes, it still is pretty bad. It does some things right and interesting, and it does other things just plain wrong. The movie has a lot to say about society and a lot to say about these comic book characters, and it doesn't really know which one to favor in need of the story. It's not a terrible movie, but it makes certain decisions that just leave you with a really bad cilantro taste in your mouth.
I said no cilantro. It's f***ing everywhere. I'm sorry. Might as well shove a bar of goddamn soap in my mouth.
So in today's video, we're going to be breaking down this movie and looking at what it does right and what it does wrong, so you don't make the same mistakes while writing your own films. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into the video.
Why so serious?
Alright, so first things first, let's get this plot out of the way, bro. So the movie starts up with a cartoon that basically summarizes the story of the whole film, which I honestly really dug. It's basically a show clip of him walking into the Murray show, and it's like his shadow is causing him some issues. He goes into like the dressing room to get ready, and his shadow gives him that two-piece shadow fruit combo and locks him up in the closet. So the shadow goes up on the show, sings a couple songs, Arthur comes back out, and he gets arrested for the things that the shadow did. So, I mean, at that point, I'm sitting in the theater and I'm like, man, this might actually be pretty good. The movie transitions from this and leads into Arkham and Arkham State with some doodle buckets that they dump into sinks, and he goes to meet with his therapist, and they talk about what the plans are for his trial he's about to go on. Because if you don't seem to remember, he went on a murdering spree in the last film. Anyways, so his therapist is basically like, listen, we're gonna tell these people that you got two personalities, and the one that did these things was the evil Jonkler, and you're just Arthur, so you're innocent.
Radio the other day, and the guy was singing that his name was Carnival.
So from that point, you kind of get the gist of the film. He's on trial defending on the idea whether he's really not the Joker or if he's actually Arthur Fleck. He meets Harley Quinn in chorus class and they hit it off. Joker gets her pregnant in probably the best 17 nanoseconds of his life. He gets deeper into the trial where he has to fight Harley and his therapist if he's really Jonkler or not. Harvey Dent is here. We'll get into that later. Jonkler says, nah, I'm not Arthur no more, I'm Joker. So he comes back to court as Joker. He pisses off the guards at Arkham. They take him back to the prison and they yeah, they kind of do some unspeakable things. We'll come back to that. He comes back and he cries about how miserable his life is. He says he's not the Joker anymore. The courthouse gets exploded. Joker runs away. Lee turns out to be a bop that doesn't want to crack open an ice cold prime and watch Talk Tour with him, and Joker gets rearrested. Then he gets shanked to death by a random inmate and bleeds out, and the real Joker was the random inmate. So, yeah, it's really a lot. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and start off and say the plot on paper is pretty good. I love the idea of a court drama with Fleck on trial for the things that he did in the first movie. I loved the use of the music and the idea of the film being a musical, but it feels like they didn't really fully let these scenes cook. Starting off with the beginning of the film, very good. Showing Arkham State was really well done. They really got the toning down perfectly. It really just feels like a disgusting, grimy nut house.
What?
It's really good. They set up the court really well. The idea of Joker being an alternate personality Arthur made up to cope with his pain. Some pretty good stuff. And then when they like start the court stuff, it's kind of simple. The scenes are pretty quick and they don't really go anywhere. It's kind of like he did this, he did that, that's it. I guess it's okay because it's just starting to start off. But it kind of feels that way for the entire movie. They come to the court, they say a couple things, sit down, and then it's over. This is the interesting stuff that we want to see. We want to see this court stuff. This is crazy potential right here. We have the most insane, non-defendable character up against the law.
He would be truly humble under God. That's what thug means.
This is the nitty-gritty. I mean, in a film like this, it doesn't get better than this, and they totally fumble it.
thing.
Each scene in the courtroom just kind of feels devoid of like anything, any kind of urgency or passion from both sides of the defense table. Harvey Dent is in this. This should feel like as crazy and intense as the chicanery episode in Better Call Saul, but no. Dent stands up, asks a couple questions, and then sits down.
Is this serious?
The only really emotion he shows throughout the film is just smirking like he's some preppy guy and he really cooked with his claim. Like, dog, you just asked if the color of the guy's shoes. You didn't cook at all. And for Arthur's therapist, all she really does is get the audience to feel bad for Joker, and this goes on for 2 scenes until Arthur's ego can't get enough of it and he decides he's gonna represent himself as the Joker. Okay, great. This is interesting stuff that we want to see.
Yes, excellent.
Just for him to come back and sell the
But
bag.
first I gotta do a few errands.
Now, granted, this scene was a little bit better, but all Joker does is talk about the exact same stuff he did on the Murray show.
Look around. Look at all these people. I will no longer allow any of you to keep me down.
He says the whole thing about how he's not noticed until he does something bad. They bring out the door from the first movie and he talks about how Arthur killed the dude in front of him, and then he tries to tell Arthur like this isn't him, and the fact that he was the only person that never made fun of him. Upon hearing this, Joker starts to close up and tell the judge no more questions. I thought this part was good. It shows that he is starting to crack, and hearing these things is starting to get to him. Again, it's starting to show promise that goes absolutely nowhere. There's not a single scene that shows he even considers what Gary said to him. And I see people all over TikTok and online talking about the scene like, yeah, he may have realized it, but he didn't do anything. After this, he kind of riles up everybody in the court and then has to be taken back to Arkham, and he's the Joker during this scene and obviously enjoying what he's doing. It's contradictory. If he took those words to heart, we should have seen a struggle between the two forces of Arthur's mind. But instead, we get a musical number of Joker singing about how he is Joker. So things make even less sense with this. Instead, why didn't you show us a musical number of the two personalities? A scene that plays out like Kendrick Lamar's You off of To Pimp a Butterfly would have been incredible, but instead we get a stale moment. After Arthur riles up the courtroom, he's sent to Arkham, where the guards are obviously kind of pissed at him for calling them a couple fat jerks. So they do the usual, you know, they toss him down an entire flight of stairs, rough him out a bit, and you know, they start to get a little too personal. You know, I was kind of uncomfortable here. And then they
Hey,
What are they gonna do now?
I don't need.
Bruh.
they kind of do a couple things in the area where the sun doesn't shine. This disgusted me. Not only was this totally unneeded, but it makes absolutely no sense. In no world can you convince me that Arkham guards would sexually assault anybody that poops in a bucket and with no paper and no showers. But that's just me. You know, I'm just saying that whatever floats your boat. I know there's going to be people in the comments trying to defend this and say like this is so deep and full of literacy and I just don't get it. And you're right. I don't get it. I don't want to get it. This scene was so bizarre and so unneeded and disgusting. I felt like they just did this because they try to reuse that trope of, hey, everybody, let's start feeling bad for the guy who killed 6 people. One of them being his mentally ill mother, who probably couldn't tell the difference between Shakespeare and that new KSI song. That was a joke. Nobody can tell the difference. They did absolutely everything that they could to beat him down and make us feel bad for him in the first movie, and they want to do it again for some reason. So why not just do the lowliest thing known to man that we can? Let's assault him. I don't even want to talk about this anymore. It's so ridiculous. After this happens, he goes to court the next day, still rocking the makeup, where he tells the audience, yo, I ain't Joker no more. He starts crying and talking about how miserable his life is and admits to killing all those people. And I'm just sitting in the theater appalled. What made you think that you earned this heartfelt moment of realization? Absolutely nothing happens. He gets assaulted and then he drops the name. This is the thing that ruined the film for me. Instead of, hey, giving him a compelling story arc or giving us some turmoil in his soul would have been fine, but they decide to assault him instead of taking the time to show us that Arthur really earned this quote-unquote redemption. Now, I'm not saying spend half of the movie developing an Arthur that has no enemies. I'm just saying it would have been nice to see that Arthur was at least trying to fight back against the Joker. From how the film portrays Joker, it's almost like an intrusive thought or an addiction that you can't put down. You know, like the 2 out of 10 girl that you just can't stop going back to. I know some of y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. This shouldn't be an identity that he can just drop. There has to be some form of journey, and this completely skips over all of it for a disgusting scene. And that's where the movie lost me. After this, the courtroom gets exploded and his glazers grab him and they try to take him away. Joker runs out of the car. He tries to find Harley. He finally finds her. She's like, nah, I don't want you no more. She leaves. He goes back to the prison and he gets killed by another inmate. And that inmate is revealed to be the real Joker. Now, me personally, I don't have a problem with this ending. I think people are kind of overhating this fact. I mean, yeah, I guess the real Joker in this universe technically doesn't have a backstory, and that's kind of disappointing. One of the most interesting things about Joker's character is the fact that nobody knows who he is. Nobody knows his backstory, and it's kind of funny to think in this universe, like, they're gonna be researching him and he's like, yeah, nah, this guy just killed the first one and carved a smile in his face and his mouth just because. Like, that's instantly aura lost, goofy boy. But I did like the idea of the Joker being more of an idea other than a person, which is an idea that is explored in countless adaptations, but this is really the only version that we really get to see that. Other than Gotham, but that doesn't really count because it was planned. Anyways, the movie ends there, and I sat there and cried profusively because I thought of all the potential that this plot could have had, and then I watched a new episode of Penguin and realized DC's still doing better than Marvel.